For the Breezy Point City Council for Monday, February 7th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on, item number 3 on the agenda, consent agenda. 3A, council minutes January 3rd, 2022 and January 13th, 2022. 3B, approval of claims totaling $53,947.16, including electronic checks 2936E, 2947E to 2949E, and paper checks 137358 to 137425. 3C, authorized purchasing, replacing of police officer pistols. 3D, approve hiring part-time police officer. 3E, approve reimbursement of overpayment for a special assessment. 3F, call for a special meeting, a council meeting on February 22nd, 2022 to select candidates for city administrator position and review fire service contract proposals. 3G, approve purchase of budgeted pressure washer of $5,579. And 3H, approve purchase of budgeted small trailer for $6,188.50. Is there anybody that would like to have anything removed from consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve consent agenda as read?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Lillehei, second from Councilmember Maroney. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 4 in the agenda is open forum. Is there anyone at this time wishes to address the council in open forum? Okay, come forward. State your name and your address and let us know what this is about. Is this about something that's further on in the agenda?
It is.
Okay, so what I would ask is maybe if you'd want to hold your comments till we get to that point in the agenda, would you be willing to do that,
works.
sir?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect, we'll
Makes
do
more
that.
sense.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, open forum is closed. Moving on to item 5 in the agenda, mayor and city council updates and committee reports. 5A, mayor. Fire department quarterly meeting. City administrator and I attended that last week. I think I've got my dates right. And attended the quarterly meeting. There was several items covered on the agenda while we were there. In particular, there was some discussion about the current negotiations between Pequot and Breezy with regards to the fire department services. There was also some discussion about their changes in their fire relief association with regards to the amount that was going to be being put into that into the future, along with other general items. Overall, the meeting went well. And then just briefly, we did receive our January report. I think we had 2 fire calls for the month of January. So very low volume call for this time of year, which is good. So I don't know if council has any questions for me on that. All right, and while I'm at it, I'll give a little brief update regarding the fire negotiations. We did meet with Pequot Lakes actually this afternoon and talked with them more about a draft joint powers agreement. Spent time discussing with them pieces that we wanted to have fleshed out more in detail with them. That's moving ahead very well. And then also we will be meeting with the city of Nisswa tomorrow to discuss a draft contract with them as well as was set forth by the council in January for the city administrator and I to work on. So what our hope is to have these agreements along with our current agreement that we would be looking at for this coming year from Pequot Lakes to the council for the February 22nd special meeting. So that information would go out to you ahead of time so you guys would be able to take a look at it and be prepared. for that special meeting. So that's why that was added to the meeting on that day, just so you're aware of that. So I think we're making good progress and hope to have some final draft contracts and agreements for the council to look at, and we'll have a recommendation at that time too as to what we feel is the best direction to go to. So I don't know if there are any questions at this point on it. Water? Are you good? Okay. All right, I'm going to jump down real quick to the bottom there under B3. I'm going to, that finance committee piece, I just want to really briefly touch and let the council know that as of January 10th, the city was debt-free. So our debt has been paid off in full, and so we're currently debt-free. So congrats. It's a good place for the city to be in at this point. So so that's all I have for my reports. Moving on to 5B, council members road committee, cooperative project and 20-mile-an-hour road discussion. Councilmember Maroney?
Yes, so the road committee met on January 6th with the rest of the communities involved with Jenkins, Ideal, and Pequot regarding the Bushman upgrade for at least our portion. We all should have received a draft of what the feasibility study is. All parties received that, waiting for any feedback as far as misspellings or any punctuations. I didn't see anything, so I believe that this is going to be a final, so we're waiting for them to just give their stamp of approval on it and pass that on to us. Okay. That's when really we as the group have to discuss where we're going with it, where the other communities are going for it. Personal feeling is I don't know where those other ones are going to go. It's been discussed more of the local standard, if anything, on that. So some more work to be done with it, but at least we've got that study completed, and we can take those next steps of what the city of Breezy Point needs to accomplish.
So just a quick question. Ultimately, do you see then the road committee coming back to us and making a final recommendation as to that direction once we have more of that information?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
For the second portion, 20-mile-per-hour road discussion, I believe this might be why Mr. Jensen is here, so I would like to hear if am I assuming correct? So if we can ask Mr.
Yes.
Jensen to speak on that behalf.
Yep, please come forward. Again, state your name and your address, please, for us.
Steve Jensen, 29668 Shoreview Lane, Unit 905. I'll be brief. I mean, this subject has been beat to death. I'd like to thank Councilmember Maroney for putting it on the agenda. I assume it was based off the email that I had sent yourself, Mayor Rogengamp, Councilmember Bakken, and the city administrator. You know, I think Shoreview Lane would be a good target for this. I mean, let's face it, we've discussed it many, many times. It's narrow, two cars can't pass side by side. 30 miles an hour is way too fast. There's high pedestrian traffic, there's families with strollers. I mean, it meets the criteria for something like this to be implemented. That being said, I don't know what the new state law that was passed and by the legislature, I believe August 2020, you know, what that all entails or what cities have to do, but I think the council should strongly look at it. Then the only other comment I have is there was a, you know, the memo dated March 31st, 2021 for the road committee recommendation spring 2021. You know, at that time, the request to review speed limit changes, the road committee recommended the following to meet state requirements. Well, my question is, the legislature passed the law in August 2020. I'm assuming it was in effect January 2021. So the process that the road committee outlined, is it valid? Does it need to be rewritten? That would be my only question. Are you familiar with this, Councilmember Maroney?
I'm not sure. Oh, yes, that's, yep, the process that we put forward. Yep.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
So we did receive some additional information as Mr. Jensen indicated. At that time, when email came to the road committee, I was also notified that Mr. Bakken was also forwarded a copy, which then at that point we occurred with a potential open meeting law. So we kind of ceased communications at that point to bring it back to this table. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to meet as road committee to rediscuss these findings,
Okay.
get our engineer involved and talk about the process again, find out what those findings are. I did reach out to a contact that was on the website that he indicated, got some additional information that I'll be bringing to the road committee as well and going through with that process.
Excellent.
So more to look at. On a side note too, as we discussed last fall, I think it was that we kind of concluded it, she should probably yell at me, is that we did order our own speed sign. So that is on order. We do not have an ETA with everything going on in the world today. We don't have an ETA on when that's going to be here. But that sign is going to be slated to be on Shoreview Lane as well to get more data from what is going on for traffic counts and speed studies as well from the internal aspect from the city. So that's still on the slate to do.
Okay.
That won't not be done. So.
Very good. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Councilmember Maroney?
So if I understand you, this is going to be a sign that has smarts in it, so it records as opposed to just displaying speed?
Correct.
Okay.
So that was the sign that we also borrowed, a similar sign we borrowed, but the data collector was faulty, and so we didn't get true data for a consistent basis. We had good data, but it wasn't a long enough period to really satisfy all needs. From the aspects that we saw, most speeds were going under the 20 miles per hour. But again, we're going to just give it another relook with our information, our sign, and not rely on a third party.
Other questions from council?
Just a comment. This is another study. How many studies have we done on that road?
On Shoreview?
Shoreview Lane?
I think the only one that we've done so far has been the sign that we borrowed.
Yeah, that one didn't work. Okay, my input is this. I highly encourage the chair of that committee and the police department to drop the speed on Shoreview Lane to 20 miles an hour. That is a death trap. I've lived there quite a few years. I see every summer, I see the cars parked double, packed out into the street. That's got to be done, and I patiently await the decision, and I thank you for your efforts, and Mr. Jensen also.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Councilmember Maroney, for the report. All right, moving on. Council members B2, Park Committee, January meeting update. Councilmember Bakken.
I am back on. Excuse me. Bronchitis. All's quiet on the northwestern front of Breezy Point. That'd be Cemetery and the disc golf course. There were 2 newly elected members to the disc golf course, and Joe, I think the first meeting is going to be in April, when we talked, I believe, and at that meeting, for the benefit of the 2 new members to that very important committee and wonderful job that's been done. I can't remember his name, Joe, but the guy who was here at the council meeting will be there to explain to them the possibilities of that park. And also, I believe it's number 4 in the state now. And Joe can correct me if that's wrong.
And you're
Correct.
talking about Mr. Humphreys, who was here and made a presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Very, very, very good presentation.
All right. All right, thank you. In Finance Committee, I've already covered. So moving on, item 6 in the agenda, Administrator and Staff Reports. 6A, City Planner Presentation of 2021 Building Permit Report. Mr. Bonsack,
Good evening.
good evening.
We've prepared for you a chart that gives a current perspective and a historic perspective of the building activity that's occurred in the city of Breezy Point just this past year and comparing previous years back to 2014. I think if you look at the far left-hand corner, we have the number of permits along with the classification. The first one would be new dwellings. We had 58 new dwelling permits last year. That's the most that I can remember since I started here. It was busy. We issued a total for the year of 233 permits. And along with the number, we also show the value of those permits. So we added in the new construction worth 22 million, almost 23 million dollars worth of new construction in 2021. I think it's very interesting when you compare the numbers. We continued from 2014. We had about 10. We had averaged, since about 2010, we had averaged about 10 our new dwellings each year. We went up to 14 to 19 to 26 to 38, and this year 58. That's almost 200 new dwelling units over that 7-year period. I think if you compare what's happening in Breezy Point compared to, Baxter might be able to rival this, but in Crow Wing County, I don't know that there's this much activity. And I find it interesting when people come in the office and they talk to me about, well, is there anything happening here? And you tell them that there's 30 houses going up. Oh, I don't see any. And that's part of the persona of Breezy, is that there's a lot of trees, there's a big expanse. You don't hear the hammers going all the time. So therefore, it's there's more activity than what you really think. And I think this chart is helpful in explaining that. The almost 200 permits for new dwellings is almost $60 million worth of new construction just in houses alone. I think it also, when you follow that chart along with the new dwellings, it shows you that the average house price in 2021 is a little bit higher than it had been in other years, not only because of the cost of construction, but I think the quality and the type of the homes that were being constructed is a lot more expensive, more towards the high end. We continue to see also a lot of remodels. People are starting to spend some money on that. I think the number of permits in the last couple of years is also reflected in the interest rate that's out there. Breezy's had a lot of activity. I think that shows that it's healthy. I think it shows that there's alternatives. I think that's something that you can play on. I think you can be proud of. I don't know where the next year is going to go. I think the interest rate is going up a little bit, so I think that might squash some of the building. The one thing I would also mention is that the townhouse project is almost complete. So those folks have been in talking about other locations for another project. Nothing's been finalized or anything. We've just had some real sketchy conversations about that. We also had quite a bit of activity in the last 2 years from a couple of folks that bought a bunch of tax forfeited lots kind of in the Delwood Acres area, built some modern income houses, and seemed to perform pretty well. They sold every house that they built. I don't believe those folks have any more lots at this time. I think they're just about done. So I anticipate that next year or this year, we're going to have less activity. But I think we're going to have some activity because there's still a bunch of people kicking the doors and asking a lot of questions.
Are there questions from the council for Mr. Bonsack?
No question, observation.
Okay.
I want to compliment the planner on the presentation. And if that doesn't open our eyes, nothing will. The city needs to look far into the future with this type of acceleration. More of everything. End of story. Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
None?
City Administrator, did you have anything to add to the presentation?
I would note, I think, Jerry, we did issue one building permit already for this year, haven't we, though? I know there's been an application at least.
I believe it's been processed. I don't believe it's been picked up yet.
I like that when they come in January already, the ground's frozen 3 feet and there's already a building permit, so, for a new house, and so, that's good news. I would also point out, because I missed it last year when Jerry was at the city council meeting, and when Jerry started his short-term, long-term relationship with the city, that was, this March 1st will be 11 years for Jerry on his short-term, long-term situations.
Golden watch. No, that's 25.
And the last thing is, with my pending departure, I've talked to Jerry and the road committee about the idea that, gotta get the mic closer to me, I'm getting scolded by Deb, so. But, yes, I see that smile, Michael. So yes, I've talked to Jerry about the idea that, with his experience, and we've talked, and he's been at some of the road committee meetings, that he assist us with the cooperative road project. The potential is there, working with legislators. And the new administrator will find it as an exciting project, but I want to make sure there's some continuity going through, and so I've asked Jerry, and he's been reading up on the files, and I hope the council accepts that, so.
I think it's a very good idea. Very good way to transition that in. That's a project that's gonna be continuing to steam forward, and we need to have somebody to be able to step right in there and keep it moving so it doesn't stall out. So I think that was a great idea, Patrick.
That's all I had then.
All right, excellent, excellent. Thank you again for your presentation, very good. I find it interesting, one last comment. You look at it, we had 38 new dwelling units in 2020 for 9.3 million, an additional 20 with an additional 10 million. So that goes to your point about the type of quality of homes being built and maybe size, and then not even to factor in the extra added building costs, and I'm sure it costs people to build things, because we know that
Exactly.
wasn't cheap when OSB was selling for what? $300 a 4x8 sheet or something, so. Yeah,
The other thing I think is interesting is if you go to the third from the right, you can tell when there was a hailstorm.
Re-roofing permits.
yeah, roofing permits, yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. All right, excellent, thank you. All right, moving on. We have 6B, approved contract with lower bidder for demolition of 30341 Terminal Road. Basically, we've received a bid. The lowest bid came in the amount of $7,681. And so I'm looking for a motion to approve that. Of course, real brief, that's the house that we're having demolished over there in Terminal Road. So looking for a motion to approve that.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
from Councilmember Ball. I have a second from Councilmember Maroney. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries.
Just a quick clarification, and that gets assessed to the property.
So when the
That's
entire
yes.
project is complete, we will be assessing that, and addition to all the attorney's fees, which is about $3,000 to $4,000 if I recall correctly. So, but normally we wait till November to assess, but on this project, because they're typically utility bills type situation, but on this project, we're gonna assess it right away so that nobody misses the fact. We've already put a notice on the property, like a lien, through our attorney, but this way they know exactly what the dollar amount is.
Perfect. Thank you.
And will that be all assessed to one parcel?
There are currently 5 there. I'm going to work with the assessor to spread it over all 5 so that they don't just leave one parcel with a large number there.
Excellent, thank you. All right, any other questions on that? All right. Moving forward, 6C, discuss call for a special meeting on April 20th, 2022 for local board of review and equalization. And Patrick, do you just want to give us a little overview on this about, I do want to point out to the council before we get into this, I asked him to put discuss on there and he's going to give us some information of why I'm asking for the discussion. So Patrick, if you can just give a little overview quick.
Sure. So every year, the county assessor goes out and values properties. They then notify the property owners of the potential value and increase or decrease. They hold a local meeting, what's called the Local Board of Appeals and Equalization, and residents are allowed to property owners, come in and talk about their value of their property, if it should be higher or lower based upon their experiences and what their properties are assessed at. The rules have changed in my tenure, and so recently, within the last 10 years, they've started asking the local boards to have at least one educated member attending the training sessions that are now put on, and that is a requirement of law that at least one person be trained for our local boards of review. I believe we have 2, and I apologize, I was going to check today, I forgot to. We should have 2 that will qualify us, and the assessor would let me know right away if we didn't. One of those members at least have to be at the local board of review. The meeting's a couple hours, and the assessor picks the date for us. It's not really our choice, and so I'm including that in your packet. You will see the different dates that are listed and times for each of the different locations for the different boards of review. And then there's what they call the open book meetings. More and more cities and townships have gone to this route. Brainerd, Baxter, for example, have already gone to the open book process. So it allows property owners to contact the assessor directly. As you know, during our hearings that we have here, they already contact them. A lot of times they work out the details and say, hey, we've worked it out, it's going to be this number, and you guys say, yep, we agree with you, or we'd like some more information. But the assessor is telling us that more and more property owners or locales are going to the open book process rather than the local board of review. The training that's required, the time that's required, I think ours is at 10 o'clock on the 22nd. Got to get Breezy Point, 10 o'clock on the 20th, my apologies. So it takes time out of busy people's days, that kind of situation. The other part of it is the county assessor is very clear that these people that are represented and working on the open book meetings are educated and certified. All of them are. And then finally, this is of course not the last process. It's a recommendation that goes to the county board meeting. And so there are possibilities for others to get there. So share that with you.
Yeah, and thank you, Patrick, appreciate that. And my basic comment to the council is this. When we have our meetings, if we have them, which we had ours last year, the county is here. They're the ones that are making the final determination on the values. They are the ones that made the original final determination on the values. So ultimately, while the people are coming here and talking to us and getting some input from us, in reality, it's the assessors of Crow Wing County that are, that team that's making the final decision. The decisions are already being made. And ultimately, in my mind, when I see more and more of our entities around us going to the open book, I would like to put out there that the council consider going that route and that we would not have a special meeting, yet allow people to go to the county, to these open books, directly to them. Because also, realize it's the county board that will make the final and ultimate decision on this. Even if we were to have input, we don't have the power to make the changes. It's the county board that makes the changes. They're the ones that sets those values and assessments. And so even if we were to be in favor of somebody's getting changed for some reason or something of that nature, it's the Crow Wing County board that's going to make the final approval. So I'm just putting it out there to the council to consider, is this a necessary meeting that we feel we need to have? I'm not stuck either way. I'm putting.
It should be good to have discussion first, but
Yeah, I mean, is there any comments, questions, ideas? I'm just putting it out there because I think it's something, what I see is it in the end making a huge difference for the taxpayers?
I
Because-
remember having the discussion last year at the meeting.
Yeah.
So I thank you for bringing it back to the
Yeah.
group, because I had forgotten about it until now.
Right,
But I think it makes sense to go that route personally.
okay.
And Mr. Mayor, it does make sense because if a property owner wanted to decrease and we said no, they have the right to appeal and go to the county anyway. So this is almost taking a step out of their agenda as well from coming to visit us, so. I could go either way, but I think it would actually do the property owners a favor almost to eliminate coming to us when the county is the final say, so.
And ultimately, they would have to go to the county, and that was my point, even if we said, well, no, we think it should be changed. It's the county that's gonna make that final decision, and they're gonna have to appeal it to the county. They're gonna make that. And they could say maybe at that time, well, you know, the city of Breezy Point feels it should be changed. But at the end of the day, the county's gonna make that final, so.
And we can still move to the open book meetings if we so choose this year?
yes,
Oh, okay.
wasn't sure where your question was going.
Oh, for this year that we can migrate it to, okay.
We can. We have the ability to do that. This would be the time when we'd have to make the decision so Patrick could notify them.
That's all I had, thank you.
Okay.
Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do make recommendations to lower it from time to time, but we have a certain window that we could work within, that we actually have the authority to change?
The city has the right to make a recommendation for a certain percentage of the entire community.
Right.
So we've never come close to that.
Well, I know, yeah, but I mean, for like individuals that come before us, I know we have recommended for a reduction in a few cases.
And in those cases, that gets forwarded on to the county board too, and they ultimately have to review it. But yes, there's been increases and definitely decreases in my time here.
But, yeah, but I guess what I'm getting at is when we make a recommendation for a reduction based on specific findings that were presented at the Board of Equalization, the county always goes along with it, or they don't have to go along with it?
They do not have to go with it. I don't know if they have never, I've always assumed they followed it. I've never tracked it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and we've never had any feedback on it, but I do know we can make those recommendations, but we have a certain window that we have to stay within, and it's a pretty small window, but the amounts that we're talking about are very small. And is it worth it for us to get together? That's really questionable. And probably the open book would be a little more convenient to the public because they have a variety of times that they can go to. So,
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. If we move to open book this year, can we go back to meetings if we heard from the public an outcry that this was not efficient?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Yeah, we'd have to find further information on that.
I thought that once you went to open book, you were done.
And
That's what I remember from a long time ago. Jerry? Call on Jerry.
Planner?
My recollection is that if you go to the open book, you have to do it for 2 years and then you can go back.
Okay.
But you do have to make a commitment for 2 years.
Okay. So that kind of
I knew
answers,
you were locked into
Okay.
something, yeah.
Councilmember Maroney, does that answer your question?
That answers my question, yes.
Okay.
I'll let further discussion.
Yes,
Last comment.
yes.
It's redundant, to say the least, and time-consuming for everybody. So I'm fully prepared to make a motion that we adopt your suggestion.
is your microphone on, Gary? It's
No,
not.
it doesn't work. It's showing me red. What does that mean?
It means the battery's dead.
I'm dead.
No, you're not. You're still living and breathing.
Sorry.
Deb's sending me a message, my wristwatch is on. Yep, we did, that one was on.
I'll reiterate. It's redundant.
A little closer, a little closer. There you go.
It's redundant, and I would move the mayor's suggestion gleefully that we adopt that. Thank
So
you.
to go to an open book
Yes, sir.
format.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Bakken for us to move to an open book format regarding the equalization with people and their assessments for property values. Do I have a second? Second from Councilmember Ball. Do I have discussion?
When they set out the taxation notices, if we move to open book now, would that be updated on those notices?
Yes, sir, that's my understanding.
Okay. So, I mean, they haven't printed those things up yet, evidently.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
One quick comment. I remember only 2 that were reduced, and Mayor Lillihei, I remember one was him. 2 in all of them, so.
Oh, we've had more than 2, but, yeah.
All right.
My only comment would be, my reservation is that if it's a once and done thing, I'm a little hesitant on that. That's my only kind of concern, is if we could say, if we can sunset that if need be, if we had an outcry from the public to say we want this back and we can switch back,
Well, if it goes by a 2-year commitment,
but we don't know that.
Yeah, what this notice is saying is we have to let them know by February 11th. So we'll get the notice out there if we make the change.
Could I suggest a difference on the motion then?
Sure.
It is saying, as long as we can revert back within a 2-year period, and administrator can authorize that, then move forward with this.
I understand the motion if there's a second to it.
is the
The original and
Is the
second.
maker of the motion in agreement with that? Okay, so the maker of the motion is in agreement with that?
Yes.
And we have the second, and the seconder as well is in agreement with it? Yes, you're in agreement with it?
Yes.
too? Yes, okay. I had to
Sorry.
make sure.
Thank
Nope,
you.
that's okay. I had to make sure you
That's
both
fine.
were in agreement with it. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
There's just one thing you want to keep in the back of your mind. If you want to go back to the Board of Equalization, you have to ensure that you get somebody qualified
Yes.
before you can go back.
Absolutely. We'd have to have the training in place, and you're correct.
Yep.
You are correct on that. So that would have to be a step that'd have to be
So
taken.
we'd have to requalify.
Yes.
Yes,
Because after
Yes.
2-year period, you're,
Thank you.
exactly.
everybody's
Can
disqualified.
they grandfather it?
You've run out. Yes. Okay, moving on. 6D, approved police service contract with Pelican Township. This is the current contract we have with Pelican Township. We're just asking for a motion to renew it as it has been proposed.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question of staff, if I may.
Yes.
How long has this contract been in place?
Chief Sandell?
Contract has been in place for over 20 years, so I don't know exact date, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I believe it's 21 years. It's over 20.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Just a great testament that this is a contract that's been over 20 years. Obviously, our services are well welcomed. So, I'll make a motion to approve said contract.
Okay, Councilmember motion, I have a second from Councilmember Lillihei. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 6E, update approved contractor for tree removal at Disc Golf Course. And this is in regards to the expansion, I believe, if I'm correct.
Yes,
You want to give us a little overview,
absolutely.
Joe? Thank you.
I contacted several loggers, excavators, that sort of thing. I located 2 that showed interest. The reason I don't have a memo or paperwork, I got a verbal confirmation on my second estimate this morning on his price. And basically, the best deal I came up with was Al DeChantel Excavating for $3,500. And that would include him removing the trees in the fairways, hauling them, and then hauling them out. That'd be a tremendous safety and time saving and help the timeline go smoothly.
he would be available when road restrictions are on. That's kind of a slow time for a lot of people. The second contractor was over $20,000 more than that because he was looking at it as site clearing, which Al does do logging, so, but it was such a small job, I mean, it's not economical typically is what I was finding from most of the loggers I talked to. So that would be my recommendation, be to accept Al DeChantel's bid for $3,500 to do the clearing at the site.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Bakken, second from Councilmember Lillahei. Is there any discussion regarding this?
No, sir.
I think that's a good price, and on top of that, he's gonna remove the stumpage for us too. So that's a plus. That's one less thing you guys are gonna have.
We have to do that, unfortunately.
Okay, you do have to remove the stumpage then. But I mean, he's gonna remove the logs, right?
Correct.
He's that, and that's kind of what I was thinking in my head. So he's gonna remove all the timber off of it as well as remove the trees.
Yes,
Okay. So that's still another step that you guys don't have to take care of then.
correct.
Okay. Perfect. Excellent. All right.
That's a good price.
And
It
and
is,
just to
very good.
clarify, that's not the whole property, this is only for the course.
Yeah.
It's roughly the fairways and then the connecting paths, which will be the minimum,
Yeah.
10 feet, just to get their equipment, because it basically travels in a circle.
Yep.
Everything's flagged, we'll be out 40 to 50 feet. Some places they tighten up down to 20, 30. It should, yeah, it would be, in the average, I'd say 400 to 500 feet, give or take, some shorter, some longer. So, it's a nice area. It's kind of in a valley. I think it'll turn out really well.
Perfect. Good. Any other questions or discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition? Abstentions? The motion carries. Hearing no other business to come before us, item 7 on the agenda, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I have a first from Councilmember Maroney, second from Councilmember Ball. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned. Thank you, everybody.